we've always said like Rev in its own practice or neuromuscular training, neural training, it's like, it's not for everybody. You know, there's like a certain person who's kind of seeking it out. And I think it's somebody that does crave change in a sense, because they know that is life in flow, you know, in that sense. And whether it's performance in a sport or just in your day-to-day interactions with your friends, I think that is kind of like the juice and the essence of what this type of training can offer you. So those moments started to show up more and more as I started to do this type of training. And it just gives you the ability to like even play at a deeper level. Now I open the door and it's like, it's a playground out there. How do I want to engage in the world as opposed to like, fearful, threat. You know, so I think that's a huge shift in the nervous system that comes down to this presence, you know, flow, and then being able to move from like that spiritual drive as opposed to like, I know I gotta do this, but it's like, no, when you're driven from something bigger than yourself, that's where I think those resistance points can be met and you can flow through them, you know, in some fashion. So start by tuning into yourself first, you know, and like rebuild energy stores, move better, sleep better, eat better. Then you've got the energy for change.
All right, Colin Donohoo, thanks for coming on the show here.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for having me in your space here. This is really cool. We've got I call it nervous system training equipment. But yeah, you've got the Rev6. So a lot of stuff we're going to get into today, but appreciate you having me over.
Stoked to meet you, and thanks for coming over, hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump in. I've got some of my viewers have been following from nervous system training related stuff. So for me, nervous system training, like I categorize that as a different bucket from like strength and conditioning and all that stuff. And the difference is the feedback. It's the feedback is the focus. So we use things like the Bosu balls, these water bells, the foam rollers, you've got that sand mace back there. But all these devices are like a version of the weight, a version of the stability device that a small change in your movement creates a significant change in the sensation and the response, the feedback. Yeah,
that information feedback loop and tuning into that as kind of the focal point of the training as opposed to just developing strength or speed.
Yeah.
It being a component of that is kind of what our argument would be in like the benefit of doing this type of training and not overlooking it.
Yeah.
You know, so training the little muscles as much as the big muscles.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think the reason I personally have gotten into this is because of this quality focus. That's the name of this podcast, is quality values. It's that idea of quality is what I'm personally drawn into. What for you, what was it that drew you into this type of movement? What's your personal story? How did you find Dr. Edith Hoyce? I've been calling her Edith Hughes, you guys, but I just went today Edith Hoyce. But
tomato, but we'll correct it today. Edith Hoyce.
So what was your path to finding this system and these movements?
Lifetime mover, athlete. Got into college, started playing just rec sports, but as competitively as I could, you know, for fun. And broke my ankle in a soccer league, slide tackled. And so that kind of reshaped my focal point at that time of like my need to check in with my movement. Up until that point, it was like, I've always been a mover. I can move in my body freely. And so I had just finished my kinesiology degree right around that time. And I was thinking about going to physical education, but I used the opportunity to educate myself. And so I started to really look into my own rehab, and I'd done some physical therapy just with my mom and through a course of athletics. You know, you get a little injury, you pick up few physical therapy skills. And then, I was introduced kind of in a roundabout way from another trainer. I'd started to develop my own little training style of like standing on one leg and doing, you know, single-sided exercises. And so kind of like balance-oriented stuff. It's like, hey, let's make sure we can move our limbs in some sort of symmetrical way, you know. And so trainer saw me from across the gym after seeing a few sessions. He's like, I think you'll dig this stuff. And sure enough, he was right. So he took me through a session. First session, like the movements were fun, but I finished the session and my neck hurt. And I was like, oh man, that kind of sucks. Like I wasn't expecting that to be the result. He's like, yeah, it's because you were looking at me the whole time. I was like, okay. I finally learned to like get my head in the right position on all these moves, and my body felt amazing. So it was really kind of sold from the beginning. Maybe it's because I already had a little bit of a connection to my body, but I felt a difference in tuning things up to then go perform. as opposed to just trying to like beat my body up more to go perform. And there's an element of like challenging with strength training or whatever it may be. But this was the refinement that my body needed at that time, and now has continued to support me athletically in whatever endeavor I want to do. If that's running a race and picking up competitive running again, or going to hike the Grand Canyon, or continuing to play and dance and move in whatever way possible. So yeah. Been practicing Rev now for I think 16 years with my own personal practice and with my clients, and I can't tell you the number of times I've been, especially in the gym setting. I don't get as many new clients coming across my doorstep nowadays, but at the gym it's like you're getting fed all these clients, and someone would walk in with a really specific scenario, a neck fusion and hips that haven't moved in years, and it's like, let's start frog rocking, and sure enough, like that gets them in the door and moving their body and getting the joints moving, and then slowly but surely we expand into all these different toys, So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And so for people watching, I've been into the nervous system training, which, and I've worked with Quentin Torres, who and we were kind of talking about it. There's sort of historically, there's Marv Marinovich and Edith Hoyce, and they both had separate systems. Marv was working with athletes, Edith was working...
They worked on the system together initially. It was proper body exercise, was like the initial birth of it. And there's a book out there with both their names on the book. And then shortly around that time is where they kind of had their little subtle divergence in just the direction they wanted the practice to go. So Marv and Edith have their own version. Yeah,
and as you were kind of presenting the difference, and then you walked me through some of the movements, and I kind of felt what you're talking about. The Edith's system on her own is a little more therapy based than the Probot X system that they came up with together, whereas Marv is a little more ballistic and a little more power based. So a little less quality, a little more power for Marv, a little more quality, a little less power from Edith.
And like the refinement in some fashion, I think and this is what I was trying to articulate, I haven't necessarily gone down to see how they present from that side of this perspective. I've only learned what I've learned studying under Edith. I think the end result is very similar. I just think it's presented differently. And so like maybe if we were to get two people going side by side, like even you said, you've done some of the movements just in a slightly different way. I think again, the end result's going to be very similar. It's just how it's presented. We look at this from a slightly more therapeutic and refined manner, where it's like, hey, if we can get the body back to a baseline and build from there, then we can add the power, the play at a high level. So that's like what we would consider our level 2 or even level 3 version of the Rev practice. At that level 1, from my perspective, it's much more kind of like therapeutic focus, where it's like, hey, we're gonna be moving a little slower. We're gonna get things reorganized that you probably haven't been paying attention to in a while. We're gonna start moving body parts you haven't moved in a specific way in a while. And we're gonna create a new language. And that just has to be a little slower early on as you're learning. And then once you know what you're doing with your body, now we can ramp it up. Plyometrics on the Bosu ball, get you into, we used to do the slide board classes when we had a studio, things like that, and that would be like the much more like power-oriented version of this work. So I do think they merge, and this is where I was also explaining to you, I don't know how they start. I've only seen kind of the end result, which is the ballistic version of what we do as well. So I'd love to see how they begin, because I would imagine it's very similar. So
there's not a ton out on there. Like most of what you can find online and stuff is BJ Penn, and it's Marv working with Troy Polamalu, like some of these legendary athletes, and
who are already great movers in their own regard, right?
Exactly. So it's, I mean, they already had super refined nervous system, super powerful bases, and so he was kind of building off of that. And I think that was really his MO in general. Is he was the trainer for the Raiders. I'm pretty sure. There are some videos with people who look like they're newer in the system, and to me, I mean, this is just me breaking it down. It looks like it's the same movement, just slower, and then you find the rhythm, and then overload the rhythm.
Progress, exactly. So, like you were going back, kind of the beginning. It's like the information, your ability to process the information improves. Now we up the stimulus, whether that's load or speed or direction or novelty. Adding in, now doing the knees side to side exercise we did, but putting your hands on the flat side of the Bosu. So progressing that to get the shoulders up to another level. So all those little fun novelty and complexities. That's one of the reasons that really it kind of like intrigued me yes, you can find novelty in things in the weight room, but it's not quite the same as like the immediate ability to add in some playfulness and some novelty in some of these exercises where it's like in the moment, you know, quick changes. And I guess, again, I always say that and I'm like, you could do that with strength training too, but it just doesn't yield the same result in the nervous system, I guess, you know, at least from my experience. So, yeah.
I like that concept too, novelty. Personally, one of the sort of unique turns I took in my trainer story is I was a memory trainer for a brief period of time.
Oh,
so
dang.
just all like cognitive stuff.
Sweet. In a specific setting or?
So the guy who taught me, a lot of his clients were medical students, and then there was like, he had a few sommeliers. I think I'm saying that word right. You know, the wine specialists who need to know. They take one sip and they're like, this grape was grown in the off season of 1952 in this little
region of
France, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of memory involved, and so the memory techniques, as I learned them, there was different systems, so you could memorize names and faces, words, numbers, cards, all these there's different systems for all these things, but the common pattern that I found is that, and this is where I get that term feedback from, it was like, we rely on some sort of feedback and there has to be some element of novelty in that feedback. So and then that's like the first half of it, and then the second half of it is an emotional reaction. And so it's like noticing something about the feedback, noticing, oh, I didn't expect the balance to shift in that way in that moment, you know, like that caught me by surprise. So it's not just the novelty, but it's like the novelty processed into something else, noticed.
And like making an observation of it in a sense.
Consciously aware of that novelty.
I love that. That's great.
And I think this goes along with your kind of adherence to play. Is like, what's so great about play is that it leads to novel situations where you're engaged enough to like notice it. You know, it's something happens that you didn't expect, and you're in the zone enough where you notice it, and in that moment something happens where it gets wired into your memory. Whether that's honestly, after doing all the memory training, I don't know how much different the muscle memory is from like brain cognitive memory. You know.
Some may argue. I'm listening to a book right now, The Body Keeps Score. It's very prominent.
I've seen that. I don't know.
Very prominent. For anybody who's training, it's good, but it'll rock your world in a sense, because you realize like everybody's a walking trauma bucket. And when we're talking about nervous system training, like you have to consider what do people feel safe with. And that's whether you're weight training, doing this type of stuff, or just going out for a walk with your client. You know, it's like you got to consider that component at a deep level if you're doing any sort of nervous system work, or just trying to train your body in a healthy way. You know, so The Body Keeps Score. It's been a very eye-opening read. You know, some of the stuff I already knew, but just contextually, the way it's presented in the book is really good. So
what's like the takeaway from that? Like, you have to be aware of what the body's afraid of, so that, like, or what happens when the body's afraid.
Yeah, or essentially when the body perceives something as a threat, right? So when our environment doesn't feel safe, when a move, somebody we're asking somebody to do something with their body that feels threatening. You know, so again, as a trainers, we're asking people to do all these things with their bodies. I go back to all the years in my gym where I was like, telling, you know, some female clients on a squat, like, get your knees open, and I'm like, damn, I probably shouldn't be like forcing them to like, reverberage, like, rethink how we cue things and just present exercises and all this stuff. So it's just, there's actually another friend of mine, he does Olympic strength training with people who are not Olympic strength trainers, you know, so Olympic lifting, for novice people. But he comes at it from a very like trauma-informed coaching perspective, because he understands like this may not be your safe place early on, but then as you get more comfortable with it, you know, you can develop a nervous system that feels safe under stress, you know. And so I think just understanding that as an approach, and like if you are having your client, or if you yourself are doing something that causes you to like startle or have that emotional reaction, it's like, oh, just check in with that. Understand why that kind of came up, and then either proceed or taper off a little bit, you know, change the stimulus to change the information loop like you're talking about. And now you can progress, you can learn, you can expose yourself to something safely, you know, maybe with support or with a trainer, whatever it may be. But now it's like, oh, like I never thought some of my clients, and I love when they say this, it's like, oh, I'm doing the impossible. I never thought I'd be able to do this. It's like, yeah, we just had to find a way to get you to feel safe approaching that thing that once felt daunting or, you know, impossible. So yeah. It's a fun space to play in, but I think the book and then some of the other things I've been doing lately in regards to nervous system training is just honed in on that, like, oh, previously I thought the startle was like kind of a fun place to play, but now I know it's like just on the edge past where we probably need to be playing.
Yeah.
If they're having that reaction and they're constantly falling off, it's like, okay, let's taper off just a little bit. That's too much challenge. It's just a little too much challenge. Yes, it can be playful, and some clients like that, but in the grand scheme of like the learning process, like if we just taper off a little bit, your success is going to be improved. There's still going to be some playfulness. There'll still probably be some falling off, you know, so we can still have that moment of like, whoop, oh, didn't expect that to happen. And then I challenge people to observe. Can you feel what happened? Which way did you fall off? Okay, make an adjustment on the next time from that information. So I think that heightens that information loop, you know, in real time. So yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah. So for me, I got a pair of barefoot shoes, Viva Barefoots, and that was like the first domino, and that got me into all this stuff. For everything from the nervous system training to the memory training to the books I read, like everything kind of shifted towards, and I still don't know the right word for it, but like kind of a holistic approach, kind of an efficiency approach, quality. I don't know the single best word. There's like primitive and ancestral. Those are like keywords out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are the best words, but whatever the
Whatever
average
the
of
new
all
age
these words I'm
version
saying
of
is, that kind of got me going on that. And since then, the result has been I feel way better. I sleep better. I move better. And I feel like I have more grace in the way where like I just catch things that are falling off of the desk. Like I'm just, not because my reactions are that much faster, but just sort of like naturally my body just stays in better positions to.
That's a fun, I think that's like attunement. Like you're in the moment, and so you can react more efficiently. That's a full, the spidey sense thing is something I love. That's a fun,
presence.
Yeah.
So let me turn that on you. And you said that you've been doing this stuff for 16 years, so it might be so much time that you don't really remember what it was like before. But with what let's start with your clients, and then for yourself, what is like when you're working with a client and it goes well, and they come back to you and like they're like, I'm feeling better. I went for a run and it felt smooth. What types of stories do you hear from your clients? Like, how does this system positively impact people?
Yeah, you know, I infuse this with the general element of play and into a lot of my sessions, and so I think a lot of the positive results that I hear is like when my clients come back and they're like, oh yeah, I went out and did that thing that we've been talking about doing. I've had a client recently who started from a very kind of just deconditioned, non-athletic lifestyle, and had been taking trips to Florida and like walking on the beach and like seeing all these people being active and doing pull-ups on the pull-up bar. And he came back like 2 years ago and he's like, man, I want to be one of those guys. So I was like, all right, new goal, you know. And this last summer, just a couple weeks ago, he was like out there doing his first set of pull-ups on the bars. He's not shirtless yet. He's not quite that confident, but it's soon we're heading there. And now he came back and he's like, I was watching people playing volleyball out there, and I was like, I've never played volleyball before. So it's like, oh, like this door opening and this potential where it's like, they're coming back to me with interests. Whereas oftentimes when I start client, it's almost like pulling teeth. It's like, what do you like to do with your body? Oh, I don't know. I'm just kind of doing this because I know it's helpful. And it's like, let's get your body feeling good enough that you want to have a hobby, and then see what shows up. So I think that for me is like the definition of success, is when my clients really start playing and expressing themselves. I've had a client who started with me after she already had gotten on her journey, so I won't take full credit for any of what she accomplished for herself, especially in like the weight loss side of things. But once she got to that point where she was ready to do something with her body, she returned back to her old passion, which was figure skating. And then slowly and surely, over the course of our couple years together, she started competing again, got all the way up to competing at a master's level for national championship. national championship 2 years in a row. So it's like just to be able to take her old sport and then to go back to competing at a high level, and being able to really manage that. Those types of things are the fun things that I really enjoy doing, is like allowing someone to reclaim themselves. A lot of times when I'm starting with people, especially at Equinox, it's like, I don't feel like myself anymore. I used to do X, Y, and Z, but I can't even think about doing that now. It's like, why not? let's peel back some of that. Let's rebuild and really get you back to playing whatever it is you want to play in this day. So yeah, that's a success story for me.
There's a bunch of things that I feel like I personally know are good to do, and it ranges from making the bed in the morning, making a healthy meal, shopping for healthy groceries, to going for runs and doing jujitsu and the other things I like. And there's this line I draw where some of that stuff that I do, I feel like I'm fueled by what I call spiritual energy, and then other stuff I kind of have to force it. I had to overcome some resistance. But I feel like there's a theoretical reality where I'm going through my life being fully productive, fueled only by spiritual energy, where I'm not fighting any resistance to do the things that are going to add up to a good life for myself. And it's just and I consider my life kind of a quest to get to that point where I'm getting it all done through spiritual energy. So I'm gonna bring it back to what you're saying, but for me, jiu-jitsu, I'm fueled by spiritual energy. I don't have to try. I just have to get myself there, and then my body just does it, and I have a great time. Whereas grocery shopping, not that one is I have to. Is it mentally okay, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing. Okay, I'm gonna get in the car. Okay, I remember the grocery bag. Okay, I'm gonna go try to make a mental map. Which aisles do I need to hit? Make it a list, get it all, and I can get it done. And at the end, I feel good. But it wasn't easy, And at the end, I might feel like, what? I'm gonna eat a little snack because I deserve it. I'm gonna watch some TV for a bit because I just did something that was annoying. But the point I'm trying to get to is that my experience with this system, and it sounds like the experience you're describing of your clients, is that it kind of allows them to shift some of that stuff that they know is good for them from the resistance requiring bucket to the spiritual energy bucket, as I'm defining those buckets.
Yeah. And I love the concept of that, just because I got such a visceral reaction when you started to mention the differences in that, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had more spiritual energy to get better nights of sleep, because I've always had resistance to just getting a good night of sleep, and I know it's healthy for me, but I want to stay up, I want to party, I want to do stuff, I don't know. Sleep is the cousin of death. I don't know. It's in some rap song somewhere, and it's just been stuck in my head ever since. I had a very visceral reaction to that. That was very funny. But yeah, the difference between those two and how maybe a practice like this can help. That's a great question. And I think the concept of flow, and being in tune, being able to process information at a rapid rate. They talk about that now. We're processing more information in a given day than someone in their lifetime used to process 10,000 years ago, or whatever. I don't know what the exact details are, but I think everyone's heard that quote in some fashion or some form of it. So if we can optimize our ability to process information in real time now, and then in turn allow our bodies to react unrestricted without that resistance, then it's I'm acting innately and in a way that's true to me, and I don't have to think about it, because thinking's a little too slow to be in real time. And then if I think about it, now we know if we start thinking about it, now we'll second guess ourselves, and now I'm not actually acting as myself. So that ability to really show up and act in a moment, in flow, in that sense, and whether it's performance in a sport or just in your day-to-day interactions with your friends, I think that is kind of the juice and the essence of what this type of training can offer you. So you can shift gears from a very playful activity when you're coming home and you see somebody on the street, you're like, oh, I want to go join that and shoot hoops real fast. I think of all these random moments in life. I don't know if these ever happen for people, but in my mind, it's if I see somebody playing a pickup game, I might stop and go play if I know I can play. Whereas if I'm second guessing myself, or I'm judging myself, or I'm doubting my ability to go do, all of a sudden there's so many doors up on what I can participate in or how I can participate. So I think this definitely, a lot of physical training is going to do this. It's going to peel those layers back and get you to identify with yourself differently. I think some of the resistance for people, going back and using that word, to this, when I try to introduce it to them, is like, they can see that it's going to challenge them, and they can see that it's going to probably highlight some of their weak areas. And I don't think a lot of people are ready to confront that, whether it's on a physical level or on a deeper level in life. Like, oh, this is going to make me change how I view things, and that I think is a resistance point for some people. Some people aren't quite ready for that. We've always said, like, Rev in its own practice, or neuromuscular training, neuro training, it's like, it's not for everybody. There's like a certain person who's kind of seeking it out. And I think it's somebody that does crave change, in a sense, because they know that is life. Being able to adapt with that and move with that in real time is how we thrive. If you get too stuck in your ways and your resistance to change, there's going to be a breaking point at some point. That force is going to be too great. So, yeah.
I've been living in Nashville. I'm not really a country music guy, but it's around so much that I'm learning to respect it more. But I don't know if you're familiar with Ella Langley. She's the new hot singer.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
She just came out with a song, Choosing Texas, and I watched it on my YouTube like 3 times in a row because it's super catchy. And now my whole algorithm on every app is Ella Langley stuff. But anyways, I saw this video of Ella Langley, I think it was like a year and a half ago, before she blew up, and she was dancing on stage. And she was very rigid. She was like unsure of herself. And then there was a video like a couple weeks ago after she's the Billboard #1 singer, and it was totally different. It looked almost like a different person. She was just feeling herself. She was super confident, and just just the quality of the movement, just dancing, portraying her art was on another level. And it really got me thinking, like, how much is just like kind of removing the barriers to allow for that flow state. I think that's like her voice didn't change in the last year and a half. All that really changed. Like she'd already learned everything about melodies that she needed to know to be famous. And
maybe she spent a little time doing some dance training or something. But like the factor of like the mindset shift.
She couldn't have possibly learned enough for her skills to jump to that degree. She'd already learned it, and she wasn't able to fully express it, and then she learned a little bit more, but her ability to express it had gone way up. But it really got me thinking that the power of the flow. And I was talking with Daniel, who by the time this is posted, that'll be the previous episode that I've posted. I'm a few behind by now, but that's how we got connected. But the idea of all these feedback training instruments and these movement systems, it forces presence. And that becomes a skill. That presence becomes a skill that you've trained the more you do this type of stuff.
Yeah, I had you balancing on the Bosu, doing that little meditation earlier, and it's like you can't be thinking about your trip coming up. You have to be here now, And if you're thinking about anything else other than the little details going on, chances are you're going to be struggling, frustrated. You're going to be falling off all the time. You're like, well, focus on this, like let it be. And there's even a little video that I posted in the idea of like this being like a little micro meditation. Each one of these little exercises, like when you stand on the slant board and you're trying to balance on one foot in a certain position, just focus on that for a minute. Just give yourself the opportunity to drop in there. That's a little flow, boom, little taste. And you start to do that for an hour, and you've had all these little micro drops of flow. And now you leave your workout and you're like, whoa, everything, like you're just like spidey sensing everything, So I love when you brought that up, because I have a very vivid memory. I was like rushing to get back to clients one morning. I grabbed all my breakfast stuff from the grocery store, and my box is stacked. I'm grabbing a couple napkins, and the guy next to me like drops his keys or something. And before I know it, I gagged with the keys, and we both look at each other and we're like, what did you just do? And I'm like, well, here you go, I gotta go. And I didn't know, just reactionary. I was in the moment, I saw it, I reacted. Before I could even say anything, I was just like, all right, So those types of moments when you are in tune, like they just start showing up. You bump a glass, you catch it. You trip, but you don't drop anything, you support yourself. And then like in time, like from an athletic point of view, I would be out on the soccer field and I would feel the moisture on the turf, and I would change my speed just enough, just a degree or two, like a mile per hour, and I would put on the brakes and I would come to a good clean stop and the defender would skate past me because they didn't change their speed and they hydroplaned, and I could literally feel like
feel it and notice.
And the micro adjustment, and then being able to accelerate out of that and just watching him in the dust. It's like, oh man, like I'm so in tune right now. Yeah, so those moments started to show up more and more as I started to do this type of training. And it just gives you the ability to like even play at a deeper level, you know? And so, yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, I like the term frames per second. I don't know if you know Josh Waitzkin. He has this book called The Art of Learning.
Okay. Love the name of that.
Yeah, really good. He's a really cool guy. Definitely check out the book.
Cool.
You would like that.
Yeah.
He was one of the top chess players in the world. He may have won the championship one year, but became runner-up or something like that.
Yeah.
But he was a child prodigy. He got overwhelmed by that, and then he transitioned to Tai Chi, became one of the best in the world at that. Totally different thing, but he kind of like took all the systems that he'd built for chess and then just sort of learned to translate them to...
Sweet.
But he has this whole thing where it's like the more you're able to, and it like from a memory perspective, the more you're able to chunk the information, it basically allows you to memorize more information with smaller, it's kind of like compression, you know, like file compression in the computer. So like you get bigger chunks. Like when you look at this ball, you can think of all the systems, you know, like when you jump up on it, someone else who doesn't use these balls too much might just think of it as like a seat, or maybe they've seen a couple of yoga moves. So you've got a bigger chunk associated with that. But basically he argues that the bigger chunks you deal with give you more frames per second. And so effectively you can react faster, even though it's just, you're able to process more information in the same amount of time.
I think of it in the context, I always go back to sport just because it's what my brain grew up watching. And I think of like when we watch the greats do it, when we watch Roger Federer on the court, and when we watch Messi, it's like at some level, they're processing information just slightly faster than everyone around them, which gives them that millisecond extra. And it makes everybody else around them look like they're moving in slow motion because they've already processed and moved that 2 or 3, thinking of chess, you know, 2 or 3 steps ahead. And I just listened to every once in a while I get really motivated by listening to commencement speeches. And Roger Federer had one that he did for Dartmouth, I believe. And I saw a little snippet of it across my social media algorithm, and it was about, you know, how many games did I actually win, or how many points did I actually win, even though my win percentage was 80%. And it's like, I only won 54% of the points. So it's just over half, you know. And so he started to talk about that. And then I listened to the rest of the commencement speech, and he got into this conversation about making it look easy, because that's something he was known for. It's like on the tennis court, you just made it look so effortless. But he's like, but you don't know how hard I worked to make it look that effortless. And I think that's where some of like the nervous system, and again, strength training, it can be done the same, where it's like you watch somebody lift a weight that is insanely heavy, you can guarantee you they've done that a few hundred times if they're making it look that smooth. You know, same thing here is like, if you refine your body down to that level, then you can go do the thing. And even if you've never done it before, I can't remember, it was, a few years ago, but I went into a capoeira class, and I was stoked to try capoeira. And I went to the Brazil World Cup, came back, and I was like, I'm gonna do some capoeira. There was a studio right down from my house, so I could skateboard there. It was super convenient. And I walk in there, and I start to kind of move at my own pace, but I could dance background, so I pick up the easy, basic Jenga step a little. You know, I hope I said that name right. And then from there, like as you start to do some of the aerial kicks, I was like, I could, because I understood my body from doing this type of training, I could watch what the teacher was doing and kind of like, okay, that's like a jump and a turn and let the leg go, okay. And I did it a couple times, and then I got back to the line, and this guy's like, man, how long have you been practicing for? And I was like, this is my first class. And he's like, holy shit, you know, you keep going, you're gonna be really good at this. And I was like, simply down to my body awareness. And I'm watching other people run through the drill, and like, they don't know their foot placement. They're coming down, and their knee is going whack every time they're landing. And I'm like, oh, like the teacher should really regress that for them, because they don't know that they are subjecting that knee to so much force every time they're jumping, you know. So it's like, oh, my awareness from this style of training really opened the door for me to jump into something. I had some experience with rhythm dancing, but like minimal martial arts background. I'd done a little bit of karate in my youth, but not anything, you know, specific. I'd done a little bit of boxing, so very minimal martial arts stuff. But like, it opened the door and allowed me to really get in and start playing at a high level, which for anybody who starts something, like that's a big entry point, like a big barrier. If you get in and you feel like you suck, how many times are you really gonna stick with it? Whereas if you get in, you have some success on that first day, then it's like, ooh, I wanna run with this. Hearing that compliment from somebody else, for someone else, might have spurred their whole capoeira career.
Yeah.
And that could be that one little thing where it's like, if you just have a baseline of awareness to your body and your ability to move through space for what you're capable of, boom, now you know how you can participate in all of these other things. Yeah. Fun stuff. So I think I got a little off topic for whatever question you initially answered,
That's
but
the whole point of the podcast. the hour-long.
I ramble.
That's,
So
that's the. Cool. Everyone who listens to the podcast is signing up for rambles.
Hope you guys are okay with that.
I wanted to ask you about Edith too. So I did my episode with Quentin. I did. We did like 30 episodes of the Nervous System Training Podcast, and he studied under Nick Curson, who studied under Marv. So a lot of Edith's ideas kind of ended up in that mix. But I just wanted specifically, what is Edith's story? I only really know the story of hers that overlapped for the Probotics era with Marv. But was she Pilates or something like that at first?
No, her background is chiropractic.
Okay.
So she went to chiropractic school, and then through my understanding of it, and again, not to butcher her own story, I've heard it a few times, so hopefully I get some of the details right, but went to chiropractic school, started to practice chiropractic work in the East Coast, using muscle testing and some of the techniques that they'll use to assess the body. And she started to use the muscle testing to really map certain intrinsic muscles, certain little muscles that just continually showed up. And from that, she started to create exercises to develop those muscles and turn them back on, to support the big movers. So there's always like refinement of these smaller muscles to support those bigger muscles that get a lot of the attention in the weight room. But sometimes the little muscles of the feet get overlooked, until recently. Barefoot training wasn't a thing 20 years ago, so it's like now we have barefoot shoes and people training barefoot, and not just lifting barefoot, but now using specific tools to train the feet. We know how complex and intricate they are. So she started to develop these exercises, little influence from Pilates, and you'll see that in the moves, with certain moves, and you go watch it, it's like, oh, that's the same, like our inchworm exercise. We didn't do that one today, but it's like rolling the ball up and down the wall with your feet on the ball. Very similar to an exercise on the Cadillac where you're using the spring and raising up and down, so you'll see a lot of similarities in that regard. The major difference there is like the instability, the surface that they're on, even though it shuttles, it's very stable, the bed, whereas the ball promotes that just little extra element of like having to be focused in this moment, So her development of that, she started working with professional athletes and kind of a modge-podge of people, but one of the stories I remember her mentioning to me early on that really kind of painted a picture is like, oh, something's going on here, was like she was working with a classical pianist who was going through a whole bunch of issues that was now affecting his ability to perform, and going and seeing some specialists. They were recommending spinal fusion in the neck and all these types of things, nerve stents and stuff, and she started to do her muscle testing and recognized a couple of these muscles were weak and started to train those, and in turn avoided surgery. And I was like, all right, so like if we do get the system refined and upgraded, maybe some of these knick-knack things that we get wear and tear injuries, and now we see the increase in certain surgical procedures going up over the last few years, where it's like, oh, wait, if we get tension patterns in the body reorganized, maybe we can avoid some of those surgeries or mitigate the need. And so she started to develop proper body exercise, turned that into Rev. I got connected with her around 2008 through another trainer when I was working at Equinox. Equinox is always doing continuing education stuff, and there was a power plate seminar. So I went to the power plate seminar, and she had been invited there to do, at this point, and I think she still does this periodically, but she'd been in the game long enough, 30 something years, where people will reach out to her for product testing. And it's like, hey, what would you do to this? We've designed it for this, but like when you see the power plate, what would you do? So she came to kind of give them her insight on like how she would use the power plate. And she was actually at the time, and she, with her husband, have created their own vibrational frequency plate, slightly different, more from a therapeutic standpoint, because certain tissues in the body will respond to certain frequencies. So the vibrational plate hums at that frequency. You can turn on the lymph system or promote circulation or target the pelvic floor musculature, things like that. So needless to say, I met her there. Right around the time I happened to be working with another gentleman as a potential mentor. His name was Lenny Parasino, and he was with like applied functional sciences. He was, I forgot what it was, but he was like applied fellow of kinesiology. He had this really cool title, and I was like, oh man, that's kind of cool. And right around the same time I was going to learn from him, I stepped off the power plate at Equinox while I was showing my client a step up, and my back went out. And so I was like laying on the floor. I finished the session, and I call him, and I'm like, hey man, my back went out in this session. I know I was gonna come out to see you today, and that was gonna be like my first mentor meeting with him. And he's like, well, we'd address your back today. We wouldn't really talk about much else, but if you want to still come out here, come out. I was like, I'll postpone, and when I'm feeling better, I'll come out. Delayed long enough that I went to the power plate seminar and met Edith, and my whole course changed. So yeah, did that first workout with Jeff, my neck hurt. Did the second workout with Jeff, felt great, and then got certified a few months, I guess maybe 6-9 months after that. So 2009 sometime. Yeah. But yeah.
What, and Rev6 certified, is that?
Yeah, it was Revolution in Motion.
Revolution
before that we just rebranded in the last like year and a half to Rev6. Gotcha. So yeah, it's changed a couple times from proper body exercise. But yeah.
What has been the history from Probiotics? Was it right into Revolution? Was it Revolution in Motion?
Yeah, Revolution in Motion. And that was the studio version that there was a period of time before I met her when Jeff, the guy that I learned from was, sorry, hit the mic there. When Jeff was her like protege trainer guy, him and his wife actually, they were doing private training in their own regards. And so I don't know exactly the detail of like the jump between the end of like proper body exercise, Marv and Edith working together, and then the studio open.
Do you know when they split? It's all like before
2000s, early 2000s, I'm guessing. Because I'm trying to work backwards. Like I got in the loop around 2009. Jeff was in it a few years before that, like 2005 or 6. And so I'm guessing like early 2000s maybe was that little break off. There's an old video that surfaced recently of, I think his name's Jason Sehorn, like old football player, doing like early Rev practice or probiotic stuff with Edith. And it's like, whoa, Edith, like young version, still looks exactly the same almost, just grayer hair. But yeah, it was crazy to see like the early version of the exercise. And again, like the refinement that has come from it now, compared to like the very first version of some of them. So it was fun to see that. I'll send it to you if I can find the link again. It's a fun workout to go through too, just the early like 45-minute workout that they had.
Yeah, if we do find it, I'll include it in the description too.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's on Vimeo. I'll get you the link. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know exactly that chunk of time between when ProBox kind of split off to become Rev, but then she opened a studio and she moved from East Coast to West Coast, and she opened a studio back in New York. Don't ask me why. So instead of opening a studio here, but she opened a studio in New York right around the time I started. So my counterpart, his name's Alex, he was the one who ran the studio. He's on the East Coast.
So your East Coast counterpart?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so he and I started right around the same time. I was at Equinox, he was running the studio there, and then kind of matriculated the studio. Obviously life has changed a little bit from brick and mortars being like the end all be all to fitness. Previously that was how we did it. But now we run everything virtually. So she does virtual classes. So everything's, if you've got enough space in your house and a ball, you can get after it. So yeah.
And so you said it was 2008 that you got into?
Yeah, when I started. That's when I joined Equinox. So I probably started learning Rev around 2009, give or take. Yeah.
And would you consider yourself like a Rev purist, or do you add in elements from other systems to your? It seems like you've got the Rev and the Play. Those are like the
movement
Emphasis on
play is my
like
big
maybe
umbrella. Rev ends up being a big tool I use under that. So
Are there
in my
any
own
other-
like training philosophy, my business is the language of movement. And so I just want people to move in a variety of ways.
Okay.
You know, if that's strength, you should have some strength in your you should have some sport skill based stuff. You don't have to play a sport, but like challenge yourself. Some of that stuff is really beneficial. You know, the agility, the skill, the coordination. Dance, as we talked about, promote everybody to get some dance in their life. Martial arts, you know, so I kind of have these like subcategories that I think are beneficial to expose yourself to. You know, it's great to be a one-trick pony, but you know, we've learned nowadays if you don't have to focus in one thing, there's a big benefit from a brain perspective of learning a few different skills.
Yeah.
So that's really the big umbrella I try to get people in. So if a client comes to work with me, it's like, hey, what types of things do you like doing? Sweet. Where do I hear there's a deficiency? Oh, you don't dance, you don't do X, Y, and Z. All right, cool, let's interject a little bit of that in there. And then when injuries do pop up or when little patterns start to show up, it's like, oh, you don't connect to that area of the body very well. I tend to go to Rev because it's the tool belt I know best, but I still use general strength training principles and things like that. A little bit of like animal flow, primal movement stuff enters the fray as well. My friend Bam is really big into the primal movement.
Bam, he's in somewhere in the Central America or something.
Yeah, he's all over the place. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't had him on this podcast. I think I've
great
reached
guy to
out
talk to
him and we talked about it and just never made a time. But
if you get a chance to link up with him.
Yeah,
awesome guy. Yeah, really getting people moving in a cool way.
I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
There's another guy I did a podcast with who brought him up. Michael. E3 movement was his thing.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen E3 online before. Is it Michael B something? Michael? I can't remember. Yeah,
he's moved to Texas.
Okay.
But yeah, he's functional movement guy.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, it's all these
small
that's
world.
The thing about doing this podcast is eventually, like,
the web starts to connect.
Yeah.
So Bam used to be out here, and so I met him at my friend's farm, and then he, like a year or two after I first started coming up, my friend runs this event called Garden Games. So he has a farm and he invites everybody out for a weekend, and it's just like one day, you know, but we come out, we do like usually 4 or 5 random games that are like farming oriented. So it's like, he's smart. Yeah. So we're doing work for him, but we make it gamified. You know, some of the stuff is just fun stuff.
He
but
adds
it's
the
like,
hype and you guys add the work.
Yeah, last time we were like digging little holes, and then that became a bed for his new, he's gonna try to grow these like humongous carrots or something like that could be like 3 feet tall or something like that. So he needed a deep hole for them to grow into. So he's very, very smart about this. So needless to say, Garden Games, it's a fun, playful event where it gets community together, and then we feast on, you know, farm fresh food. So I started coming up for that. Bam was there the first year, you know, super athletic, slicing apples and throwing logs and doing all stuff. So he and I clicked right away, and then just watching him grow into his own practice. You know, he was already a proficient mover in his own personal practice, but now being able to apply it for other people to take it and turn it into a reproducible system is really cool to see how he's done that. So, yeah,
it's pretty cool. It's, as someone who's been studying all these different systems, the deeper I get into it, the more respect I develop for people who really like come up with these complete systems, or maybe nothing's ever complete, but comprehensive.
Yeah. And being able to package it in a way that's digestible, because I think that's a little bit of the hiccup point for like getting people in the door to like start teaching Rev. It's like, there's so much going on. Where do we even start? How do I start to apply it to a client? Yeah. You know,
well, that's actually a question for you. Like, what would be if Rev was in a book? What would be the table of contents? Like, what's the core organizational structure of what's the broad strokes?
Yeah, I would say like the introduction is going to be like our essentials. You know, so the 6 essentials, it just creates a dialogue to reference your body. You know, so instead of thinking about certain muscles and training certain muscles in a workout, we train segments. You know, so the feet, the pelvic girdle, we think about the abs, the lower back, the hips, the pelvis. So we have a whole pelvic floor training class. You know, where again, when we talk about training feet, how many people think about training their pelvic floor specifically? You know, so in thinking about the hips, the relationship to just the pelvic bowl, the abs, the lower back, we focus on that as an essential. There's like 3 essentials in there. the torso position, the shoulders, and the head. So there's 6 essentials. The 7th is the pelvic floor in some fashion, however you count those out. We have an order to it that we would teach, in that introduction segment. But then, yeah, from there, it's like finding the process of identifying which essential to try to upgrade would be like that second component. Because for us, a major thing, and this would be something that I'd love to talk to one of the Speed of Sport or Sports Science Labs, side of the equation of like, how do you program? Because that's something that Edith thinks is very special to the Rev approach, is like the sequencing of the moves. So we're not just going through a generic sequence, and when you get into the higher level of training it, you're actually modge-podging these movements together in a whole litany of different ways to upgrade a specific essential. And so we might spend today, and we kind of talked about it in our short sequence, we did a little bit of a torso focus. And then towards the end, I was like, if I had another 30 minutes with you, I would hit the feet. Yeah. That was the thing that was showing up next. So we start to see, it's like, ooh, what? And this is a tough thing that I've had to struggle with. It's like, we're not saying anything bad. You're great as you are. But it's like, ooh, if we wanted to upgrade something, I would target your feet next. Yeah. And so it would be like, okay, I want to get my biceps bigger, so I'm going to go target my biceps next. So it's like, okay, we're just targeting a focal point. And so being able to identify the focal point for your own personal practice would probably be like the next component that I would teach in that book. And then from there, just start showcasing the sequences and the exercises, which, now, as we talked about, luckily that's being shared finally, as opposed to having to digest it from a book, which is 2D images, no movement. Now you actually get to see some videos showing up on Instagram or social media, YouTube. So there's a few follow-along sequences on there for people to get started with. Yeah. So
there's a book I like called The Goal. It's a supply chain book. It's about assembly lines, and this guy's a factory, and he comes up with different ways to optimize the efficiency of the factory throughout the book. But
The Goal or The Gold?
The Goal.
The Goal.
Yeah. Eliyahu Goldratt is the author. Okay. It's one of those books I read, and it wasn't something, like, none of the information I read in it was anything I was going to apply directly, at least at the time I was reading it. Maybe one day I'll be supply chaining my products more. But at least for now, it was just conceptually, it was very useful. But literally, I haven't really used it yet. But the one idea, probably the biggest idea I took away from that book, was the idea of bottlenecks. It's in any system. There's some hinge point. A point of friction is another term for the same idea, where that's like if you're pouring out a bottle, if you've got a wide mouth mason jar, there's no bottleneck. There's nothing that slows down the flow. But if you have a beer bottle or whatever, it's choked at the neck. The flow out is capped by the smallest point. So yeah, I mean, my feet in that session, you're seeing that's my bottleneck. But I'm just throwing that at you as a terminology thing. Yeah, I like that one, where it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just the realistic.
Just the thing that's creating a little bit of disruption.
The leverage thing to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm big on the verbiage of stuff, especially as we were kind of talking about earlier with like the trauma influences, like saying the thing in a way that's not babying it. It's like still being real and honest, but it's like, you're not wrong. Nothing's wrong with you, but like, we could learn to move in this way. You move in this way. That's great. But let's also learn the other. And that's oftentimes what I try to get people. Like, that's my overall philosophy, is like, learn to move in as many different ways as possible. Because at some point you may be required to move in a specific way. And if you've never done that, now you got to figure it out for the very first time right there. And that's where, injury risk, things like that could pop up, potentially. So,
But in general, I think bottleneck focus, like just turn your focus to the bottleneck and then make that, widen that neck, and then something else will end up being the bottleneck. But that's the most efficient way to grow through anything, whether it's
I like that.
Whether it's an assembly line or something.
Yeah, or the growth of a movement system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. What is like what's your goal personally with this? Like, is this just like an infinite? I call it like a quality quest. It's just like constant refinement, constantly just like learning better verbiage, better ways to communicate, better ways to understand these ideas yourself. Is it that, or would you eventually like to build your own system or that kind of thing? Like,
Yeah.
what's the when you fall asleep at night and you're excited to get to work tomorrow the next day? What's the types of problems you're gearing towards?
Yeah, I feel like I have stumbled onto like the right tool set. You know, if I was like a plumber, I've got the wrench, I've got everything I need as far as like the movement practice, whether it be just Rev specific or incorporating the rope from David Weck or incorporating the sandbag strength training stuff. You know, so it's like the movement stuff. I really feel it's like if someone showed up at my doorstep and wanted to move, we could figure that out and get them moving in a better way that's going to make their life more fulfilling. And so in turn, it's turned into this like, like in a weird way, like how can I be a one-man band man and save the world? You know, so like how can I help people live so fully and express themselves so purely that it inevitably ripples out. And other people want to catch that same essence. Yeah. And so it's like I'm really trying to get people to live life to the fullest, you know, through this work, and in turn, hopefully inspire others to do the same thing. So my whole, I guess, work slogan or thing, my catchphrase is move with the people you love to build memories that last lifetimes. And that just comes from my own personal experience in my childhood. You know, when I think back, a lot of like the things I remember, you know, it's like, oh man, it was like me and my parents going cross-country skiing, or it was something rooted in movement oftentimes, going somewhere, doing something with my friends, being on sports teams, you know. And so it's like, oh, like the times that I really remember are these things that are like rooted in my DNA, like in my growth of my body, you know, my ability to run, you know, all these things. And so, yeah, getting people to have that experience for themselves in whatever that capacity is, you know, is really the juice of where I'm headed with this. So, yeah, I just want to help as many people as I possibly can in this lifetime. I have a very ridiculous number in mind. So,
what's the number?
8 million. I'd like to try to help 8 million people.
How did you get to that number?
It was 80,000, and then after a few years working in the gym, I'm like, oh man, I probably got a few thousand already, just in like the ripple effect. Like I've helped my clients, and they've come back and told me, it's like, oh, I'd share this with my friends. I'm like, okay, cool, it's starting. So I don't have an exact number in mind.
Why 8?
Because that was a small fraction of the world's percentage at the time. I kind of rounded up, you know, 7.8 billion or whatever it was at the time. So I was like, oh, if I just go 8 billion people, and then I take a percentage of that, I could do 80,000 people in my lifetime, and then recently, I'd say in the last like 6 months, I'm like, I need to aim higher. I need to dream bigger. Yeah. And so that's where I'm like, no, let's go 8 million people.
2 zeros.
So yeah, why not? You know, so.
I like that. I really think you need to, like at this moment that you set that goal, then like you see the edges of the problem you're trying to solve, you know, rather than just being something where you're just trying to expand outwards. It's like you see to what end, you know, and I really do think that that's a powerful point to cross.
Well, and even be able to set those targets, right? It's like when you know exactly what you're aiming for, and then you're working towards it. I don't know if you've read The Alchemist or whatnot, but it's like the universe conspires with you, you know, and it's like when you have clarity in your mission, you know, things will align in some fashion. You know, getting to meet you is getting an opportunity for me to now spread my word out through a means that I never even knew about. Yeah. You know, so now I'm stoked to have this conversation, to be able to talk about this is something I love. Yeah. And if even one person takes a little gem of this and is like, I'm going to go start to do this weird, random neuromuscular training stuff that they were talking about, hell yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
chipping away to the...
Exactly.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's... I'm trying to thinking back through the last hour or so, our conversation, it's like the things that resonate to me is like the idea of the presence, and the flow, and and there was my idea of spiritual energy, and that to me they're all related. It's like the more that you train your abilities to be present, the more you're getting done with spiritual energy rather than overcoming resistance energy, and thus the more you're in flow. And it almost seems like there's an ultimate version of reality where you wake up and you're just in flow until you pass out at the end of the day, and the whole time you're just locked in, just fully absorbed with the moment.
I definitely feel like that is possible in some capacity. There having studied with the Flow Genome Project, which was a really fun experience, they have a whole Flow Genome Project.
What was like the scope of that?
It's just the study of flow.
Okay. Cool.
You know, human performance, flow states, the zone, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, it's funny when you use those words in a sense, because in the process of flow, there is a need for a resistance point. And then oftentimes, you know, if you think of like, you're going and shooting free throws, and you're shooting free throws, and you're shooting free throws, and you're trying to get 10 in a row. You always get to 9, and you miss. And it's like, oh, I can't get 10 in a row. And then you get really frustrated, and you go get a water break, and you come back, and you sink 10. And it's like that resistance point and the step away and the return. Something about that is like what they've identified as like the cycle of flow. And so I think there is something interesting, and we know like resistance is beneficial, but like in what dosage? And I think to what you're speaking of is like, there's gonna be resistance points, there's gonna be tough things, but we can still flow through those moments when we're present, when we're in our bodies. You know, so even the hard challenge, we can think of a creative solution. We can overcome it when we can move. It's like, oh, I gotta move that tree trunk. All right, cool, I'm gonna go get my wheelbarrow and I'm gonna hoist it up here, and you, like, now things don't become roadblocks. They become games to enjoy and participate in. And so that's like another component when we talk about like the nervous system and how it's all about how we perceive things. And if someone's not in their body and they don't feel confident and they're injured and they're just struggling to get through life, now walking out the front door is a threat. Everything's attacking them. Nothing seems like it's fun to interact with because everything could hurt them. Whereas like when you start to get in your body, and even if you have, like, you know, my body still gets some aches and pains from time to time, but I feel it's because I'm using my body as opposed to just like letting my body become decrepit. But now I open the door and it's like, it's a playground out there. How do I want to engage in the world as opposed to like, fearful, threat. You know, so I think that's a huge shift in the nervous system that comes down to this presence, you know, flow, and then being able to move from like that spiritual drive as opposed to like, I know I gotta do this, but it's like, no, when you're driven from something bigger than yourself, that's where I think those resistance points can be met, and you can flow through them, you know, in some fashion. So, yeah.
You're honestly kind of reframing the way I think about these things. It's like you kind of need that antithesis, you know, the yin to the yang. You know, what is good without evil? What's pleasure without pain? What is presence without resistance?
We know a little HIIT training is good for us. You know, we know doing a little bit of the uncomfortable thing is good for us. But how do you get yourself to do it effortlessly in some fashion? Just to show up and be like, yeah, I know this is good for me. I'm gonna suffer through it for a moment. Like that's kind of where I'm at with my running right now, is like, I love the running actually, but every time I go do it, it's kind of sucky. I kind of got to convince myself to run a little faster this time, and I don't get it right every time. I miss my splits every once in a while, my training runs, but then you stick with it enough, and I've been now back into my competitive running stuff since I think like December, you know, working with a friend to like coach me on it a little bit, and just ran a race this last weekend and turned in a personal best and finished first in my age category. So it's like, all right, dude, you push up against those little resistance points a few times, and then you surprise yourself with what you're capable of doing, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a fun resurgence back into competitive running recently. So, yeah.
What's distance is
10K. It's kind of focused, 5K, 10K. Yeah, nothing too crazy.
That's,
all you marathoners go.
that's a good distance, honestly, because that's like most events, most like athletic endeavors take about 30 minutes to an hour, you know? So if you're well trained for that, like you're gonna be in a good cardiovascular shape for the specificity of most
athletic
things.
endeavors. Yeah. And I felt that way, to be honest, from early days of like cross country. It's like, man, I'm so thankful I ran cross country, because now I have this cardio base. And I can show up to an intramural 90-minute soccer match, and other dudes are showing up from drinking the night before, not having done cardiovascular work, and 75 minutes on, I'm cooking fools, you know? So like that cardiovascular base, if you do anything in your youth, develop your cardiovascular base. And if you haven't done it yet, start now. You know, like there's no bad time to develop your cardio base. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man, you're living a really cool life, man. You were surfing yesterday, you're running races.
That's actually, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I take that to heart, because I've worked really hard to kind of develop this dream for myself, you know, and that's something that now I'm trying to it's like help people write their own dreams,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, if you don't feel it's attainable, start by tuning into yourself first,
Yeah.
you know, and like rebuild energy stores, move better, sleep better, eat better. Then you've got the energy for change, you know, and now like what is possible,
Yeah.
you know, so I dreamt of that road trip that I took, went around the country in 2022, and I dreamt of that for probably 10 years, you know,
What was that road trip? You've referenced it a couple times.
It was just a fun, like,
what was the
switch it up. I went to national parks. I
Okay.
just did a big loop around the country, went up the West Coast, across to the East Coast, down and back over, a couple zigzags in between. But yeah, I went to 38 national parks.
Nice.
One fell swoop, and
Did you have a favorite one?
just get out and see some nature people. Dude, I mean, man.
They're all tied for number one.
When people used to ask me, especially after the road trip, people used to ask this question all the time. So I'd purposely say a different one every time. Right now, I'd probably have to say, I think right now I'd have to say, based on what we've been talking about and like where it was in the road trip, I'll brag a little bit and I'll say that my favorite adventure that I got on was in the Grand Canyon. I watched a World Cup, so it was 2022, so it was out in Qatar, wherever you say that. USA was playing Netherlands, so I watched that, and then I was already gonna hike into the Grand Canyon a little bit, but I was like, I got in there and I was like, I'm going all the way. So I hiked all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, way later than I should have. I left at like 10 a.m. Most people leave at like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And I get down there and I was like, all right, well, that wasn't too bad. And then I slowly trekked my way back up. It was like already nightfall. Met another guy who'd gotten stuck at the bottom, didn't expect to go all the way, and we like worked our way back out there. So I trained my feet for 12 years prior to that moment, and it allowed me to hike the Grand Canyon on a whim, you know, with no prior thought of like doing that on the road trip. I was like, yeah, let's do that today.
Hike is I've done it, but I stayed overnight.
Oh, you stayed at the bottom?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I wish I would have planned a little better. I'd been able to enjoy that.
My mom
Yeah,
was
it was a
obsessed
tough
with the Grand
turnaround.
Canyon. She knew the right time to do. There's like
Yeah.
honestly, if you go, there's a way that you can reserve either the camping spots or the Phantom Ranch.
Okay.
The Phantom Ranch is awesome, but
Yeah.
if you go, just every week, I think. I'd have to ask my mom to be sure, but there's a way. There's a lottery
Okay.
system, and they reserve a bunch of them months out. So if you're like me and you don't plan months ahead, you're cooked on that. But you can call last minute, and
Okay.
there's
Sweet.
procrastination special. for people
Okay,
like me.
sweet. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, that and Utah area, just because there's so many parks out there.
Yeah, Utah is like Mars.
It's like a different space
Yeah.
planet, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you more jungly stuff, Olympic Peninsula, Olympic National Forest. That's a great spot as
Yeah.
well. So, yeah, man.
Cool. I'm on the road right now.
Yeah.
This will probably be 2 more days on the road. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun, man. Even like I as soon as I got back, I encourage everybody, just like, even as a week, like, take a road trip.
Yeah.
You're gonna see some different things. You're gonna get to go like hunt down some unique spot, you know, in nature. You'll have a life-changing experience, even on a short road trip. But yeah, if you get to do it for an extended period of time, mine was like, it was only supposed to be 6 months, and ended up being about 9 months.
That's a lot.
It was a long time.
Did you have a camper or something? Or
No, all in my
just your car?
Subaru. Yeah, just one half was sleep, and the other half was storage, and
That's
yeah.
how I'm set up in
Yeah.
mine. I've got the Volvo wagon.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Those Volvo wagons are sweet. My best friend had one in high school, and that thing was a beast.
Yeah, that thing is.
Yeah.
It's an apocalypse mobile
Trooper.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. I'm really glad that Daniel connected us.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, Daniel, appreciate you.
Yeah.
This was really cool.
Thanks for
Colin
listening,
Donohoo.
everybody. Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. Where can everyone find you who's interested? And I'll include these links everywhere this is posted.
Yeah, Instagram, I'm not super active on there. In fact, I'm probably going to start to taper off of Instagram a little bit, but Colin Movement, I'll be posting like newsletter flashes on there. So if you do want to follow my newsletter, I'll find it on there. But yeah, the website's thelanguageofmovement.com. I'm going to be revamping that pretty soon too, to hopefully portray a little more of this message about like reclaiming your dreams. You know, there's a period of my life where I stopped dreaming.
Actually, on that note, when you were saying that, I was thinking my dream as an adult mover has just been to be able to do anything, anytime, with anybody, and at least keep up, if not,
Hold
set
your
the
own.
pace.
Yeah. I love
But
that.
I just wanted to say you're living that dream of mine. So I
Sweet,
hope
man.
that
Dude,
live out.
let's keep going.
The movement life that you're living.
Yeah. We'll be brothers in this mission to keep playing and moving.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
Awesome. Colin
Sweet.
Donohoo.
Awesome, Jake.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.